Hello and welcome to the Spiritual View. I'm Jennifer Halliburton with the Awakened Gen Tarot, and I'm one of the hosts of the Spiritual View. For this special Twin Flame Tuesday, I've invited the whole group to join us, which we didn't get everyone, but we got several, for a more in-depth discussion. So I want to give everyone the opportunity right now to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Dawn.
Hi, I'm Dawn, Astrology and Tarot Alchemy.
Angie.
Hi, I'm Angie from Learn Love Tarot.
And Sari.
Hi, I'm Sari. Welcome to be with you, or glad to be with you, and happy to talk about the twin flame journey.
So today we're going to dive deep into the twin flame journey, sharing our personal experiences, insight, and the wisdom that we've gained along the way. Whether you're just beginning to explore the concept of twin flames or have been on this path for some time, we hope that our conversation offers clarity, comfort, and answers to some of your most important questions about the journey. It's been my goal to start shifting the conversation away from the traditional romantic perspective to utilizing it for what it is actually intended for, which is ascension. There's so much to still learn about all of this, and I think that one of the best ways that is by having an open conversation with others who know who know that they are on the twin flame journey and the mission as well. These discussions can be challenging because they don't always align with the traditional worldviews, but that's what makes them so powerful. By sharing our experiences and insights, we can support one another in ways that deepen our understanding and help us to grow. So let's approach this with open hearts and open minds as we explore what this journey truly means for each of us. All right, so if you guys are ready, let's dive in, and we're going to start with the first question. And so to start things off, I'd love for each of us to share, what does the twin flame journey mean for you personally, and how has it impacted your life and spiritual path? And so I will get us started off. Let's see. So what does it mean to us personally? So for me, it really does mean the ascension. It was my activation to start learning myself on a deeper level than I have ever learned before. And so my twin flame has been just a mirror to me to show me all of the ways that I have abandoned myself and not shown up for myself and not loved myself. That's the way that I have used this mission the most. And it's really, it has changed my life just drastically just since it all came into my awareness. So I would like to just start and hand it over to some of the others. So Sari, do you have anything that you would like to add with this?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I met what I would call my twin, or I'm not sure if the name twin even matters, but I was actually still in the corporate world. And in 2017, I was speaking to an audience. It was a big, audience, and he saw me on stage and sought me out afterwards. And I had no idea who this gentleman was. But anyway, it's a long story. But what I thought it was about a romantic relationship or a very spiritual relationship. But what I recognized over time was it was really about my journey, because he was mirroring, just as you said, the things in myself that I needed to look at. He was instrumental in helping me open to my spiritual journey and taught me some really great practices, especially my meditation practice. And I will be forever grateful to him for that. But it was really more over time about the balance within myself of the divine feminine and the divine masculine energies. And I really needed to balance those. And Dawn and I had a session yesterday, and based on my astrology and also kind of the life that I've lived in my profession, I had to focus more on the masculine energies to survive. And I had to put the feminine energies over here in a box. And so my journey has been to blend the two within myself, because you cannot show up in a relationship with anyone else if you have not blended and balanced those energies of the masculine and the feminine within each of us. And so when we're more balanced, our vibration is expanded. And it's, of course, about the ascension process. But it was more about my journey. And this individual really accelerated my expansion. But were we meant for some traditional romantic relationship? Probably not in this lifetime, though we probably had past lifetimes, having been in different roles. But we are part of the same soul group. And so that much I do know, and I will be forever grateful.
So, Dawn, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Me. Okay. Hi. Yeah, I really feel like for me, based on my astrology, I have the ruler of my seventh house in my 10th house of career, and it's Jupiter who had just finished stationing and was starting to go backward. So Jupiter is moving very, very, very slow. And for me, what I think I've recognized, I was in a plutonic, Pluto related relationship with my ex husband. And then when I came to my second Saturn return, and I started waking up like I was supposed to do, that was the time that it was kind of decided for me. And then the universe was like, okay, he's got to go. Did that hurt? It did. But then I learned a few other things about that, even from watching the relationship that had been with my parents. And I think I want people to recognize this, that if you are in a relationship with anyone, and I think especially if you consider that person a twin flame, they might be the bad guy so that you learn the lesson. Do I think he was my twin flame? No, I don't think so. But I know that I recognize my sons um, and the fact that I was destined to have a contract with this person. And I also realized that the unfair things that he did, the totally thoughtless, um, heart-wrenching moments that came with that, I had to learn that I don't feel like I get justice for that he doesn't suffer because he treated me that way, that he'll never feel sorry because he treated me that way. And because he won't. And the same thing happened with my mother when my parents eventually, after 40 years, split up. I said, Mom, if you're waiting for him to come and say to you, I'm sorry for the way I treated you, it's never going to happen. It is never going to happen. And you, as part of who you are, need to learn to deal with that. And I think that has really helped, because I think I have children with this person, and I will not do anything to interfere in their relationship because they have to figure that out on their own. I think that we do have to look at our own personal growth. I know I've connected with someone on level 5, right? I know that I did that. It was very, without a doubt, one of the most spiritual moments that I had. And after I came out of the meditation and then went and pulled cards, one of them was that came out was Beloved from the Shaman's Dream Oracle. And I was like, it was just astounding. And then I did a spread. But what, to me, that really told me that in my personal life too, I was supposed to grow all through this time. This was my growth period. It took a long time to get your confidence and feel that, I feel capable of doing anything now. I mean, I was like starting a YouTube channel after age 60. So, it's surprising what can happen out there. But I think we have to be there's a lot of things that we're learning from the people that we have made contracts with here. And I think that is something that we have to be aware of. Angie?
Absolutely. The contract portion is just so important to understand. And until really even, watching MJ, my sister, guided me towards that channel, and then everything else follows through. You have contracts with these people who you're supposed to gather with and meet with along the way. You make those agreements. For me, the twin flame journey meaning is about the mirror. It's all about the reflection of what that person is showing you in yourself. And that doesn't necessarily mean romance. It might mean that you're best friends for 40 years, and then all of a sudden the ending of that or the release of that, or something toppling like a tower moment to bring you to your knees, something you never thought would be or would happen, you have to start to then put the puzzle pieces of yourself together again. It's like rebuilding from a clean slate and starting at the ground. And like Cerise said about balancing, there was a real need to pull on my feminine aspects because I've always taken care of myself. I've always done things on my own. Traveled early. Instead of going right away to college, I moved to New Zealand and got married, and just life just happens. But until you experience that loss, or the dark night of the soul, where you are just gutted to your knees, I don't feel like you're truly awake, or you're not awake in the way in which you were. Nothing is ever the same again, I think, is the easier way to say that. And then putting the pieces of that fragmented self back together again and going, wait, are these really my goals? Are they my aspirations? Do I really miss that person, or do I miss how they made me feel? And that is a bit of the well, why aren't you feeling that for yourself? How can you bring those elements in to feel? If you felt seen by that person, how can you allow yourself to feel more seen? How can you put yourself more out there in the world? If you felt joy and fun and you felt young at heart, well, that's showing you with the absence of that, those are the things that are missing within you. So that mirror reflection there is there for a reason, to help you fill in those parts so we can become, finger quotes, whole again. And I think I get frustrated sometimes even at the term of twin flame, because I feel like, to me, it doesn't necessarily mean romance. It means learning. And it's also not an excuse to put up with abuse. It's not an excuse to take ill treatment from someone just because you think they are your twin flame. It's not about that. So I'm really excited to start really looking at this conversation a little bit deeper and helping people understand that this is about your growth and not what someone did or did not do to or for you.
I agree with everything you guys said. We are just on the same page with all of that. I love it. Okay, so the next question, let's see. Okay, so thinking back to when you first began this journey, was there a specific moment of awakening or realization that stands out? And how did that moment feel? And what kind of impact did it have on you moving forward? And so for me, so I did have this person revealed to me in my spiritual awakening, but it wasn't as a twin flame. It was just, this person was very important to you, and you do have purpose with this person. And being on just the spiritual awakening itself, like, opened me up to all kinds of different things. And so it was a few months after that that I even heard the term twin flame. And just as I got into that, I just started learning, well, what does that mean? That's when I started realizing all of the signs that were lining up with the relationship that I'd already had kind of revealed to me. And so that was my initial awakening experience. I had my spiritual awakening first. They were revealed to me in that as important, but then I learned about the twin flame stuff afterwards. And some of the stuff that I learned about just the twin flame, like, it doesn't even come into your awareness unless it's meant to be on your path. And so, like, I just kind of went full force into it to learn as much as I could. And my beliefs have shifted just from that first moment, because I did think it was about the relationship. And now that I've learned, I've seen what it's been able to do to me, the changes that it did in me, the ways that it was able to bring healing for me. So does anybody else want to share about, and I'm going to start with Dawn, because Dawn was already touching on it.
I really feel, one of the things I know, I saw Jamie say, awakened by heartbreak. And I was in that awakening process. I have had a lifelong love of astrology and tarot from a young age. And then my job was then to raise my children, which I am totally convinced was my job for that period of time in the deepest possible way. I know that. And they are magnificent and wonderful partners. So I really think the other thing that we need to recognize is there's pain here. There is grief here. And sometimes when you're in that relationship and that dark night of the soul, we are grieving what could have been, what may have been. One of the things I think I grieved, and I recognized it later, was I was grieving what I thought my future would be as a grandparent with this person. You grieve what could have been, but then you realize what I was grieving was probably not ever going to exist in the way I thought it was going to exist. So there's recognizing that, and then recognizing that I'm going to let karma take care of whatever needs to be taken care of there. I'm not saying I don't have a glass of wine with some friends and talk trash. I do. But to me, it's much more of everybody's going to have grief. Everybody's going to have hurt. And with what's going to be going out in the world, and I'm sorry to get off topic just a second, we have to acknowledge that there's emotion that is going to come up in any kind of learning. And part of us being who we are is dealing with that emotion and turning that into a spiritual victory, in a sense. Not that it doesn't hurt, because it does, but it's something that does make you stronger. When someone gets a scar, that area gets stronger in the skin. At least that's been my experience, because you have all this stuff, extra stuff knitting together, that it makes that area much, much stronger. So I think I'll pass, because my dog has his own opinion. So I'll pass it on to someone else.
I think my that hindsight is 2020. So I don't think the realization of what's happening really even comes until much later, and that length of time is different for everyone. Um, Especially when you don't have a tribe, when you don't know anything about all of this spiritual stuff, as some people call it. You have no idea that this is for your best and highest good, because that pain is so visceral. You feel like you're never going to be okay ever again. And I feel like it's about learning that you are okay. You always will be okay. And it's like helping you regain and find those parts of yourself where you didn't know you needed to be stronger. And it's toughening you up in a very not fun way. But like I said, if something doesn't bring you to your knees, then you're not going to wake up. You're not going to notice it. It's just going to be another day. You're just going to continue to flow with the energy of where you are going. And unless you have that moment of complete, just utter, shocking, especially when there's that separation, if it's unexpected or in a way that is not kind, and it's out of character even for that other person. You spend so much time searching for the why, that you tend to, again, hindsight is 2020. All that time, it's not wasted, but all that time you could have been working on you and figuring out why was this here for me, instead of trying to be the sleuth and the detective and find out why and what happened. Like, you do. I mean, that's a natural human reaction, is wanting to get to the bottom of it, right? And it's figuring out that reason. And that is such a heavy energy in and of itself. And then you're just attracting kind of more lower level energies that you don't even know that's what you're doing, because you're still in the trying to figure out the why, and instead of going, what is this supposed to teach me? And unless you have other people saying that, or be educating you on what's happening or what's could be happening, they should never tell anybody that, that's their soulmate or their um twin or whatever that is. Like, every human knows that. We feel that connection. That it is, if you feel it, then it is. We just have to figure out what it's supposed to be teaching us, rather than why they did what they did, because it's not about that. And we can waste years still being hurt in the, I can't believe they did that. So that's kind of, and I think the awakening doesn't happen fully. The realization is well after after the awakening, and that's, you don't even know what that is yet. So yeah.
Well, one thing I'm seeing right here is it's different for every one of us too. And so, like, for me, it was kind of, there was a divine moment that did happen. And then we've got Dawn was talking about her 5D experience too that happened. And then you just had more of a, like, it was the long game that you were playing with that, kind of looking back. So Sari, what do you have to add to this with the awakening experience?
Mine was wild. And sorry, Dawn, when your dog started barking, when Jack was barking, Luna's upstairs barking, thinking there's a dog somewhere. So apologies if I got distracted. I didn't know for probably at least 18 months that there was even a word for twin flame. When I met this individual, I will just tell you, it just kind of like blew my chakras wide open. And I didn't even know what meditation was. And he was the first person who took me through how to meditate. And he was a Uber athlete and actually swam the English Channel. So meditation was a very big part of his practice. And I experienced telepathy with him. I could be on the opposite side of the world and focus on him for like 2 or 3 minutes. And he literally would pick up the phone and say, "Did you ring?" We had the same meditation. We could be in different locations and meditate separately, write notes, call one another. And we had the exact same meditation. So just a huge amount of spiritual expansion. And then I started having recall of all these past lives that we had together. And they were very specific. And I told him things about himself that no one knew. And that really freaked him out. But it was just this, like mushroom cloud, almost like this nuclear expansion. And I had absolutely no context for it. I just knew the vibration was extremely high vibe and went with it. And it was a platonic relationship. He was married. I was in another relationship. But we didn't know how to frame it, other than it was just very expansive. We were very connected. And just the telepathy alone, I could be anywhere in the world and think of a thought and he would call. Or if I was really upset about something that had happened, he already knew in advance and would pick up the phone and call. So we just didn't have a way to frame it. But I can speak to the fact that it was a period of great spiritual expansion for both of us. It ended, we did the runner chaser thing back and forth. And then he ended up ghosting me, and he did it in such a cruel way. Basically called me a spiritual fraud and cut me off. And that's been 5 years ago. So yes, when you speak to the things that people do, a lot of that's based on fear because they have no frame of reference. And whether you call it a karmic or whether you call it a twin flame, it's here to teach us a lesson and to expand the growth of our soul. So I after 5 years, have such gratitude that he helped to open me up and help me face my shadow side. But were we supposed to come together in union in this lifetime? Maybe not. And maybe that was what our soul contract was. I even had a dream about him 25 years before, and I had written it down because I'm a big keeper of a dream log. And I'll just briefly tell you, I thought I was in this place in Australia in a house, and there was all these people with this beautiful sunlight coming into this kitchen. And it was a kitchen like had a square island. And there's this gentleman who was bald, and he had this beautiful energy. And do you know if you've ever been in a room with someone and there's like tons of people, but there's only you and this other person energetically? That's what it was. I didn't know who he was. And I walked up to him, and I looked up to him and I said, teacher. And I thought I was listening to an Australian accent. So I thought all these years I'd been in Australia. Well, this guy is South African. And at the time in my professional career, I didn't know the difference between an Australian and a South African accent because they're similar but different. And I realize now I was in a place in another dimension, or we had connected. And his nickname growing up, because he's so cerebral, was teacher in his native language. And so the fact that I knew that, but I had just gotten married, and I can remember I felt such love with this individual, and I didn't even know who it was. And I felt really bad because I wrote it down and I said, I've never experienced love like this. And I certainly don't feel this with my husband, which was probably more of a foreshadowing in its own right. But I wrote that dream down, and it really disturbed me for many years because I could never figure out why I had that. And then when I met him, I was like, of course, it's him. But just all these years later, 25 years later. So just kind of crazy.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Okay, let's see. So I think that definitely leads us into the next part. So about the challenges and lessons along the way. So the twin flame path is often filled with intense growth opportunities. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you faced, and what lessons have you taken from them? And so the biggest challenges is the separation. It is the the heartbreak that has already been mentioned. I mean, that's the biggest challenge I think that all of us have experienced with it. And then, well, what do we do with this? Once we realize, okay, we are on the twin flame journey, then what are we supposed to do with it? And especially if we're not going to be in connection with that other person, then really what does it mean for us? So that's been my biggest challenge, is just to try to understand, well, what was the purpose? And for me, I think the biggest purpose was just to wake me up and to get me on the path and to let me see myself very, very clearly. And so again, the biggest lessons that I know that I've been learning is about self-love, about my own worth, my own value, and about not abandoning myself for anyone, no matter if they are twin flame or not. So does anyone else want to add to the challenges that you've experienced? I'm going to start with Angie this time.
Literally ditto. I mean, the whole time you were talking, I was like going like this. It is about your own expansion. And it is about, again, seeing yourself, what you admire in them, or how it made you feel, how it made you come out as you. You fall in love with that version of yourself because of how it felt. Right. And so I think the challenge there is that we feel like without that person, we are not the person that we felt like. And so that part of that learning is going, okay, well, why am I denying myself those opportunities to lean into that part of my personality more? Because it's not that other person gave that to you. It was the combination of the energy, but you have that same frequency. So you're not the same people, but you are reflecting the frequency. So therefore you haven't lost that higher frequency. You just now have to find it in a different way when there is that separation. Once you can kind of get past, not kind of, once you have to get past and grow through the point of the pain and the hurt and the sorrow. That's a lot to pick through. I mean, that anger, that umbrella of anger emotion encompasses so many aspects of the human personality, of feelings, that you have to really, to even get through and pull all the rubble back of the anger, is, that can take years too, depending if you're doing this alone, if you're isolated, if you don't have anybody to talk to about it, or really if you just don't even know what the hell is happening, or why this has come to be in your life. And it's about reclaiming your own power is what I feel there. So ditto for me there, Jen.
Suri, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think what both of you said is spot on. And the only thing that I can say is from the work that I've done in the Akashic Records, they laugh and they say, well, humans made up this term called twin flame. In the astral plane or in the fifth dimension, they don't talk like that. And so whether you call it a twin flame or a soulmate, they're part of your soul tribe for whatever reason. You made a soul contract. And Dawn, I love that, the way that you positioned it. And there are lessons that we came to learn from one another. And that soul contract might be that you are together in union, but it's really about being in union with self, because most of us have been programmed in this lifetime that we're not worthy enough. We can't spend time on self-care and self-love because we should be in service to everyone else, to the exception of that, which of course is a lot of hogwash. And that we're supposed to be harsh and critical to ourselves because the rest of the world is going to be anyway. So, taking away all those old layers of belief systems and patterns and learning how to love self unconditionally that's really a hard thing to do. And so I think that, some of the challenges around it, and some of the ahas have been kind of stepping back and saying, what's the higher wisdom of what I needed to learn? Is this about the other person? And sometimes if they act out of fear, yeah, the rejection was terrible. And Jamie, you said it, love yourself after rejection. That was hard. And I just allowed myself to detach and to step back and say, what is the higher wisdom of what I needed to learn? Don't focus on the label and don't focus on, is it romantic? Is it not? What's the real learning here in my own expansion? What lessons did I need to learn? And what did they actually trigger in me that I wasn't really willing to look at? Because what they triggered within me were issues about abandonment, about self-love and self-care, those kind of things. And it allowed me to shine a light on them and to say, you know what, maybe I need to pay attention to this because that's part of my own spiritual expansion. So that's what I would have to add as well.
I love it. I love that you brought in about the unity, because we talk about union and it's always about you and another person. Union starts here. It starts with bringing it in for yourself first. All right. So Dawn, do you want to add to this?
I'm so technologically challenged. Sorry. I do think, and I've realized this over my journey. And of course I have, I'm more on the later end of technically waking up, although I think there's gifts that you have all along that you don't realize that you have. And I've come to see that things that, I'm like, okay, I wanted to wake up and just give me a guide. I'm a Gemini rising. Just give me the book and I will study the book. What I've come to realize, being born into the family that I was born into, where we had a lot of our self-esteem taken away, that if I would have had what people would consider a twin flame that would be coming in to take care of me, I would not have grown as a person. I think it would have been crippling for me to always have to rely on this other person. I think I've always had that fifth dimensional, because it seems like anytime that I've always had, when I've had like going through bad 3D experiences in my life, I've always had a very comforting dream state that it's just like, when things are going bad for me, I have like the best dreams you've ever seen. And I feel like my twin flame, whether they're here or not on this plane, it was there to give me a soft place to fall. It's not like I wasn't going to fall, because I needed that lesson and needed to learn to stand up for myself and do things for myself and connect with the other people in my lives. I mean, I have really good relationships with my sons. I was mom, the mother, for a long time. And now that they're adults, it's a different relationship. And being able to recognize that I don't need to have that power relationship that my parents had over us growing up and even well into adulthood. I let them go, and they are adults in their own right that have every right to disagree with how I would do things, and every right to have the relationships that they want to have. And it's very much, I think, the fact that recognizing, especially people that have gone through their first solar return, then they're getting up to their, Chiron return, which is at age 50. And then I think we get lessons all along the way, but I think we're also, as we elevate the other person who may be that mirror, because I do believe that that's that mirror, what their lessons they're learning, we get the benefit of, and the lessons that we are learning, they get the benefit of, even if we're not in the same place. So that's why so many people, when they kind of meet up later on with their twin flame, there are so many things that are the same, that it's like, oh, this relationship, and you had that kind of relationship, and this is how it ended. Well, me too, right? So I think recognizing that on a personal journey, we have our own work to do. We have our own work. And I think once if I was going to remarry again, boy, it's a high bar. It's a high bar. I don't even think marry. It's just a high-end relationship. That they would have to be extremely enlightened and intelligent, or otherwise I'm perfectly happy being by myself and going and doing things and enjoying myself. I have manifested myself to a point in my life that I can do a lot of what I want to do. It's not like I don't have problems, because everybody does still. It's part of the journey. But I think taking with the idea that the twin flame isn't there to solve your problems. They're not. Or to take over for you or go to bat for you. Because then
They
you're
are
not
not your savior. They are
right.
not your savior. And I think that's very important to say. Yeah,
And
I like
that's
that.
that's really all I feel like is I probably would have been a much weaker person if I had met someone that was going to take over the responsibilities for me. I had to take all of my responsibilities. I took care of everything. But I'm a much stronger person because of it. But it was a long journey. And but there's so much more that now I can enjoy, because now I've mastered that, got that, ticked that box, right? And I just feel like most of what we're doing is our own journey first, before that twin flame journey.
Before the union can actually happen, you've got to get yourself. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so let's see. Moving forward. Are there any transformative moments that you've experienced that significantly shifted your perspective on the twin flame connection or deepened your understanding of yourself? And I mean, just the twin flame journey in itself has just been complete transformation for me. Just from the minute that it started, it was just like everything started shifting. My whole life is nothing the same as it was 5 years ago. But I will say the transformative moments that I've been having this year is just the understanding of once a divine when you are a divine partner, you get a divine partner. That was the one that was kind of coming out for me this year that's changing. And then with the QHHT sessions that I've shared is just that not getting so focused on that one other person. So that's been the biggest lesson this year for me, is not being so focused on somebody outside, that once you get it right here, that you will get aligned to that correct divine partner, so you don't have to even think about who that person is, because you're aligning yourself to that potential reality as you're going. All right. So who wants to add to this? Who has had big transformations that you want to share? Start with Angie.
I was just thinking about like how physical independence, financial independence, I own my goal is to own my own home at 30. I did that. You're checking, I want to travel the world. You're checking all these boxes. You are physically, financially independent, but that's like the outside shell piece. It doesn't mean emotionally independent, because you think, oh, I'm not bothered by these things, or I'm not bothered by, not having people around when I needed them, because then you just form this hard shell. But those are then also walls that keep you isolated. And then that journey is, okay, you do all these things that you can protect yourself with, of nobody can hurt me, I'm in control. And for me, it's like the discovery is we're in control of nothing. We are in control of ourselves, our own energy. The only thing that can ever predict or change outcome, and I don't even like saying that word change, that can bring something vibrationally to you quicker, is your own energy. And that's one of the big reasons I don't do timing in my reads, because that depends. It depends on your growth. And you can't say, oh, October 28th of 2026, this person's going to, knock on your door. Well, that may or may not be so. But if you haven't done the emotional independence work of being emotionally okay by yourself, healing all of the things that you thought you were fine about, when you're growing up of parents that were the boomer parents that were raised by, World War II parents, that they weren't taught how to use their emotions. That wasn't okay. They weren't it wasn't okay to be an artist. It was what are you going to earn? How are you going to be useful? And so then therefore that trickles down to our generation of, well, children are seen and not heard. You are not, then their conversation is not an open one about, hey, how you doing today? It was about what grades are you getting at school? Point your toes on that jump from the coach. It's never about the emotional component of, yeah, but have you really worked through the abandonment? Have you worked through that pain? And for me, that was so confusing, because for me, it was a rational thing of course, a teenager's not going to be great. They're going to be selfish. That, like, I would have done way worse had I been in that position with two young babies at 20 years old. There's just no freaking way I was mature enough to handle that. So the logical part of your brain can get that, but that doesn't mean that you've done the emotional growth and the learning from how that affected you. It doesn't mean that you've brought from the subconscious every single relationship you've ever had is then mimicking those wounds to try to get you to heal them. And I feel like the difference between the person that is meant to wake you up is because it is showing the wounds. They usually have those same kind of wounds. And, the parents can get divorced in the same years. You can graduate around the same time. You can get married to different partners around the same time. But what you love in them is what you should be loving more in yourself. And what you dislike in them is also a mirror, no matter how much none of us want to admit that. If I'm not liking that that person doesn't, call when they say they're going to, or show up when they say they're going to, that's something of, how am I not showing up for myself? Where do I do that out of fear that there's going to be abandonment there? If I allow someone in, or if I allow myself to shine, people won't like that. So I think there's a big difference between being independent physically, financially, being, the WIC, being the woman in charge, and then being emotionally independent, because we cannot be that until we understand that we have shadow, and it's not something to be ignored or push away or hide from people. That's where we need to go, what I don't like in you is something that I need to be looking at about me. And why is that I don't like that about you? What is that triggering? What is that triggering the healing for? So that's where I kind of am on that transformational, that little shift in the thinking of, just because you're independent physically doesn't mean you are emotionally. And just because you can make logic out of the whys of things happening in your upbringing doesn't mean that it didn't hurt and didn't affect you. It's not fault finding. It's going, oh, how can I then shift this for the generations to come? And every relationship that you ever have after that will then also be different. It's not going to be the same patterns once you are healing those wounded pieces. You're not attracting another wounded person with the same wounded parts.
One of the things I was thinking as you were saying that, so when they're a mirror to us, and you're saying that their negatives are also mirrors, like that's something in us. I instantly felt like this, but wait, I don't act like that. I don't treat people like that, that kind of thing. But when you look at it as, well, what do you do to yourself? Because that's where I see all of the negative traits showing up, is how I treat myself. I may not treat anybody else outside of me like that, but I'm absolutely doing it to myself. So that's how you can use the mirror. If you can't see it like in any other way, how do you treat yourself? All right. So Dawn, do you want to add to this?
I think it's important to recognize that we do have a lot of contracts with other people, and that's how we're meant to learn. And one of the things I will say, the good contracts are like soul tribes like this, right? Where you can, it's a safe place. It's a trusted, energetic group. And I will say that one of the things that I realized when I have like such strong alcoholism in my family, and 90% of my aunts and uncles were an alcoholic or married to one. That's how that way for generations and generations. So one of the things that I realized was I was also here as one of the jobs contracts that I had was to break that cycle. There's a lot in this particular moment in time. There are so many people in this group that will be watching this that are breaking ancestral trauma. And one of the things I did learn, and it just kind of I wasn't just breaking it for me. I was breaking it for my ex-husband's family as well, because they had theirs. But my sons are not going to have either his or mine, because we've changed that structure. That contract is over and it's done. And I think people need to understand that there's contracts that you're always going to have with other people, that you're there to help them learn. They're here to help you learn. And I think once we realize that, how it's that ripple effect. It's that ripple effect, because something might stick in your brain for a little bit, and then you'll be going out doing your thing and something else will happen. And then you'll go, oh, I get what that means now. I didn't quite get it. And now I see that. I see that in my learning. And I do think that is part of that. The twin flame journey is also that contract, but a lot of us are monadic, I feel. I don't know if I am or not. I do know I do have that higher connection with someone that was so incredibly loving and supported. And it was just like thrilled that I can't even, and it wasn't like we hugged or anything. We just physically were holding hands and facing each other like that. And the amount of just sheer joy that came through that connection alone was, it wasn't, we tend to do that 3D physical stuff all the time. And it's more than that. We're here to learn anyway. We're here for a purpose to learn in this 3D. So will have 3D problems, because that's how we learn. But we do have that higher connection that every once in a while we just get that, that perfect aha moment that will kind of happen periodically. And I feel that comes through other people with soul contracts.
Yeah, and I'll expand on the soul contract, Jen. I thought that I could only do the twin flame journey, with him in partnership, whatever that meant, because we had signed up to do spiritual work together. And that didn't necessarily have anything to do with a romantic relationship, but he obviously broke the contract through ghosting me. And the way he did it was particularly cruel. And I love Jamie's comment about maybe part of the learning was how to rise above and do it on your own. And so my aha was, and I got guidance from my guides that said, coming to earth, even if you do make a soul contract, that doesn't always mean that the person that you made the contract with is going to honor it, because this is a planet of free choice and free will. However, you continue the journey and you continue to expand. So if I'd listened to his words, I would have never done any kind of spiritual expansion, because he made me feel small. And they said, no, stand tall in your authenticity of who you are, and you can do this journey on your own. It still means you're connected with him. And I still dream about him. And sometimes he's in my meditations from time to time. So I know we're still connected, Dawn, like, as you said, in the other dimensions. And there will always be a special relationship there. But my aha was, I can do this and stand tall in my own truth of who I am as a soul. And there's a collective of us who can do that. And if the soul contract wasn't honored, that's actually okay, because maybe someone else will pick up where that individual left off when it's time.
And I'm going to expand just on that part because Dawn has mentioned it a couple of times and it just kind of keeps popping up for me too. So we do have purposes, soul contracts with other people. And so like, I do feel like that my marriage was meant to be, I was supposed to be there. The kids that came out of that, all of that, I had a purpose for that season of my life. And then once I got to the point where that was no longer useful for me, and now I'm ready to move forward, then the twin pops in, he awakens me, and I go to the whole new path. But I mean, I do think that that's important to mention, that like you weren't on the wrong path if you were married, to someone else through all that time. There was purpose in that. Okay, let's see. So next we're moving to myths. There's a lot of information out there about twin flames, and sometimes it can be confusing and even misleading. Are there any common myths or misunderstandings that you'd like to clear up based on your own experiences? And so the biggest myth is that it is a relationship, it's a romantic relationship, and that's the ultimate goal, is to get in connection and in union with that other person. And so that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to combat with just what I'm doing here, the conversations that we're starting. It's not meant to be the romantic relationship. That is like the icing on the cake if you get there. I think that some of us do have that kind of purpose, but that's not the whole purpose of this. So other myths and misunderstandings that anyone else wants to point out. So Sari, yes.
Get it open. This is controversial, but many believe there's only one twin. And I don't believe there's only one twin. We are all fragments of oversouls, of larger soul groups. And so I think vibrationally, we can attract in a number of soul fragments. And whether you call them twins or soulmates or whatever, they are still aligned frequency or vibrationally with us in our journey. So I think that's a myth that I'd like to offer as perhaps not a reality.
This expands on what we were talking about before we started with the karmic situation. So does anybody want to actually, I think Angie, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I was just touching on even just the word karmic, like it has a negative connotation to it. And that's like saying, oh, your 12th house is crap. Don't pay attention to that. It's all bad stuff. It's just not true. The 12th house is the karmic house. It's about your soul's journey based on the lessons you've learned thus far, based on how you reacted to those lessons and those people in your soul. I call it a soul pod. You continue to incarnate, I believe, with those same massive groups of people that then come in and play different roles. So karmic doesn't necessarily mean, I would like to take that negative connotation out of the word, because it still has purpose. It's very purposeful. And so kind of touching back on when you can shift your perspective on the thank you and on, wow, they really sacrificed. That was meant to happen. They agreed to do that, yes, but if you have trouble finding sympathy or empathy for that person that did these terrible things, try to go there with it of, we agreed to this so that for the purpose of my learning. Whatever they do with their learning is their business, but this was for me, not to me. And just to touch back on, I think it was Britt talking about the story of narcissists. That's also touching back on the whole point of, she said, I miss the lake. The lake says, I miss him because I could see myself in his eyes. That's limerence. We are not necessarily missing that person. We are missing how they viewed us, but they viewed us that way because we are that way. So that's what I really want to help people understand. It's showing you where you can grow and where you can increase your capacity to love yourself. So those are, I think, are the myths and misconceptions as well. Karmic doesn't mean, oh, the bad soulmate. A soulmate is a soulmate is a soulmate. It's lifetime after lifetime. It's what the same vibrational frequencies, like Suri was saying. It's not bad or good. It's not shadow or light. It just is.
So, Dawn, you look like you had something to add.
Hopefully I'll try and bring the thought back in, because it's been very fleeting, but it's, I think when you realize that as you go through things, I have no doubt in my mind that I was destined to be married, and it shows up in my children's charts who their parents were. And people also, it doesn't have to be that it's a romantic relationship. It could be a sibling, it can be a friend, it can be a parent that you had that soul connection with. And also, I think I look at it as well when people are talking about past lives and how they say, like, everybody was Cleopatra or something, right? But in a sense, if you are a member of a group of people and there's an oversoul and someone else on that line was Pocahontas or whoever, that's part of your history too. So we all are in this learning. And I will tell you, I also look at my son's charts and their partners, and they have great charts together, but they don't have completely blue charts with sextiles. They have squares, they have oppositions. And one of the things I explained to my son is, like, you guys have a great connection, but you're also here to make each other better. You're not going to agree, though, and it shows in areas of the chart that, synastry, the things that you might be working on, but you make each other better. And I can see that. And they're very evolved. They can see that too, that they do make each other better. But they also recognize, like, okay, he only has so many words in the week. By Saturday, he's like, I just need to be alone in the woods. So, and she's like, go get your camera and go, right? She's like, when she sees him getting kind of fidgety, she sends him off with his camera because he's a photographer. But it's recognizing sometimes what that other person's need is. And it's like, you know what? We don't have to be together 24/7. That's not necessary. Go and be your own self and you have to, the most beautiful part of that is if you're two complete people, to me, that's even better. Two complete people that you choose each other. You don't need, in that sense, where they are supposed to take care of something for you. Because I don't think that is a healthy aspect of that relationship. If they're doing all your dirty work, basically, and you're in that, like I said, I realized through my journey, I was supposed to learn how to do things for myself and stand on my own, because otherwise I would have never opened up to my gifts ever. I had to be strong and independent and able to go, yeah, this is my boundary now. And I've got my own things to do.
All right, let's see. The intensity of the twin flame journey can sometimes make it challenging to navigate daily life. How have you found ways to balance this journey with everyday responsibilities? Any practices or habits that help you stay grounded? And so the main thing I'm thinking about with that is just where we get in the obsession, just worrying about, when it's going to happen, when are we going to hear from them again? And I mean, just that can really steal a lot of your time and energy when you're focused so much on what's happening with this other person. When is it going to come together? And so I just think that the way to find balance is pouring back into yourself, finding, like, I've been telling people a lot, like, you need to start dating yourself. You need to start really getting to know yourself, knowing what you like, anything that you feel like you want to do for that other person, take that and pour it back into yourself. So the time that you're wanting to spend, if you have like one thing I said is, like, when you get into a new relationship, You want to tell them all the great things about themselves. So start doing that for yourself. Start like really pouring back into yourself. Every time you feel like putting into somebody else, like start really focusing that energy back onto yourself. That's the way that I have been able to find, balance and get myself just really back into the present of what matters. What matters is my life, not what's going on outside of me. So, who wants to go with this about the balancing? We got anybody? Okay, Dawn.
I think simply finding joy in every moment that you can, because the only moment that you have any control over is the moment right now. And it's that carry water, chop wood energy of, what I'm doing in the moment now is being real. And if you're joyous in the moment now, that just kind of builds for you. I feel like that builds for people, because I think it's like, oh, I don't know how it could get any better than it is right now. And the universe says, challenge accepted. You're not saying, oh, when is he coming? Or what do I have to do? It's, I am happy in the moment. I am doing the things that are important to me, things that I feel are necessary to get done. Tick your boxes, enjoy your day, find something joyful in every day, stay centered, stay grounded, take care of your body. And what Jen said is like, honor yourself. God doesn't make junk, right? So honor yourself and your body. And I think that's the bigger part of it. That I feel like it's that find little moments of joy, just petting your pets, right? Loving them loving you. That's to me one of the purest forms of love I've ever seen. And milking that for all it's worth. Because I think those little moments like that, they add up.
The only thing that I would add, I totally agree with everything that you said. If you want the twin flame journey or that experience, whether you call it a twin or you just want to experience another soul part of you coming back to you, set the intention out to the universe, then release it, and then focus on self, find gratitude, experience joy, stay grounded, take care of yourself. And the universe will bring it to you when you're ready. So it's about divine timing and just it's like what you said, Dawn, putting your head down, doing the work, finding joy in the everyday, in the moment, but not worrying so much about an outcome. Because I think when we're so attached to an outcome, it has to be this way, or it has to be this person or this experience and on this time frame, that's when we're telling the universe how the universe is going to bring it to us, when the universe is going to decide when the universe is ready. And that's all in divine timing. And that requires sometimes a lot of patience, which in my Aries brain is quite difficult to do. And it requires surrender and letting go.
Angie?
I think the balance is all in like you can look at the soulmate journey through the page, the Knight, the Queen, and the King of Cups. It's about that, you starting off on that, just in that love stage of the puppy love. And that's really of self-discovery. You know nothing, except this feels real good. Like, and this is fun, right? That childish energy of just newness, and you're like this, it feels like a great time, but really, again, we know nothing yet in that aspect, and until once you kind of get through the King and then come back again of, oh, now the Page of Cups is about looking back at my past and examining that childhood journey or that puppy love journey, and really looking at the journey the whole way, getting into the the Knight. Fun and nine and Knight are the funnest things to say in tarot, to differentiate But the Knight of Cups is learning the lessons. It is about discovering yourself. It is about discovering your strengths and weaknesses. And that puppy love can turn into that more mature love because you're self discovering yourself. But then there's also, well, is it just in love with love where you just want to stay in that dating stage forever and the newness and the fun part of it, and then you cut and run when when it gets too scary or feels too real. So everybody behaves differently, but only until you get to the Queen of Cups, when you realize if you've been over giving, then the intuition cuts off. It's not as loud, it's not as constant. We don't see the signs, we don't see the synchronicities, because we're pouring from an empty cup. So we have to learn again all over again how to fill that ourselves, especially like motherhood. That takes everything out of you that you completely have. You're running on fumes a lot of times, and you have to relearn. Like, if I'm not doing this for myself first, my kids are not going to see me doing that. So they have to see me pouring into me. They have to see me doing that because that's what I want them to do. I don't want to give their whole cup to somebody else. And then by the time we learn how to do that, and only if my energy, there's enough for it to give, then okay. Then the King of Cups comes that balance and diplomacy. And it comes that you don't have to say a word, it's just the knowing. And that's the rulership of the heart and the head. That's when the soul really becomes aligned. So I think I mean, I just love tarot. It's terribly interesting. It really helps us as humans understand like the whole what this love thing is all about. And it really, to touch back around again, it's really about learning about self. It's learning about how to love you in the ways in which you thought someone else was loving you or you expected them to. So examine those things and ask, how am I doing that for myself? And every single day, you can do something silly. You can be with your pets and take them on a walk and enjoy nature. That's going to raise your vibration. You can put on a silly song and dance like an idiot. You can pick up the phone and talk to your girlfriend you haven't talked to in 2 years because you've both been so busy. It's about that vibrational experience and enlarging your own and opening your own heart instead of cutting it off to feel safe, because there's no such thing.
That is so cool the way you went through the cards and brought that together like that. I love it. Okay. This is the last question for the group. So, for those that are watching that may feel that they are part of the twin flame journey, what advice would you give them? And what's one thing that you'd want them to remember as they navigate their own experiences? And so we've given a lot of advice about this. And I think the main thing is that I would want you to remember is that it's not about somebody outside of you. Even if that's what starts it, even if that's the activation is that other person, it's really not about that other person at all. It's about what it's doing for you. And the other thing that I wanted to say that hasn't been brought out yet is just what the whole purpose of the twin flame mission is. Why it's important to even do your part of the mission is that we're raising the vibration of the planet. And that is very needed at this time. I mean, as you look around, you can kind of see like what we're doing is needed. And I saw this in some book, and I don't have the exact, but like, one person who can hold that vibration of love, the impact that that has, around all of the people around them. So, I mean, it's important that we're doing this work because we really are raising the collective vibration of everyone around us, plus the planet as well. So, final advice for everyone. So I'm going to start with Sari.
Just what I said earlier, if you have found a twin or in that experience and the soul contract on their part is not honored, that doesn't mean anything. All it means is that you are focusing on your spiritual expansion and your gifts, and stand tall in that. And as you said, let your vibration and your light be heard and seen throughout the planet, because this is what we're here for. This is what we signed up for. And whether you're doing it by being balanced within self, or you're doing it in partnership with someone else, they both can be equally powerful. So that's my thought.
Okay, Dawn, do you want to share?
I think that the best thing that you can do if you're involved in a twin flame situation, and again, I feel like I'm very connected to someone, at least on the fifth dimension, whether they're here on this plane or not, is do your path work. Do what you're supposed to be doing, because even if you are very connected with a twin flame who's, you're there to teach each other. We're all here to teach each other things. And I think it's most important that we follow what our path is, first and foremost, because that helps that other twin flame. And I totally agree. It helps that the planet get higher and higher in that vibrational level. There's nothing better than making sure you've got your lessons down.
Okay, Angie.
I think the advice that I would give and do generally give is the acceptance piece is really a tough component, and having compassion for the people who are in that separation, especially if it's pretty raw and you're stuck in the but whys, and you don't know how this kind of unfolds or what you're supposed to do. You're just kind of dumbstruck, and they get stuck in that but they dids, and the dreaded but they dids. And if you can help them with that acceptance portion by reminding everyone that, can we forgive that they were just not in the level of consciousness that you are right now. Just because it's not happening right now doesn't mean forever. Those things do have a tendency to circle back around. And in separation, for me, that's, you can't learn some things with each other, that you need to go and learn some other harder lessons with somebody else. You're still growing your vibration. If you go and do your side of it and they stay wherever they are in their level of consciousness, then that's not anybody's fault. That's just their human decision, because we all have free will. And if they don't do their part, that doesn't mean that gives you a pass on not doing your part. You've still got to evolve and live your highest life and your best good. But the advice for the acceptance piece is just really, really, I mean, it's tender, it's hard. So I think a way to understand that is just, to try to release that, is they're just not on that hierarchy alignment yet. It doesn't necessarily mean forever. Of course, by that time, if they stay there and you're here and here and here, you're already vibrating. So there's other opportunities coming at you that you're going to be like, so and so who? Then you're going to see if that was their choice. It doesn't make them, they can do terrible things or do things that are really hurtful and cruel. They're just not there in the hierarchy of consciousness. There is a hierarchy. There are levels. And when you come to understand and learn these lessons, you can't force someone else to learn what they don't want to learn or don't want to face. And nor is that your job. But we can have compassion and forgiveness that they're just not in alignment with you at that moment.
That is really great advice. I wanted to spend the next few minutes just giving the viewers the opportunity to ask some questions of their own. We've covered a whole lot of things. So if you still have any questions about the twin flame journey that you would like to ask us, go ahead and put that in the chat now. I haven't really been paying attention to the chat, so let me see what's been going on.
Jen, just as an aside, while we're waiting for questions, today's life path energy is a 6 of the Lovers. And remember, that's a double edge, it's a sister energy, right? It's an opposition. So the challenge of that is the devil. It is the fear. It is the codependency. It is the addictions. And the fear is the biggest thing. So when you get one, with it comes the other energy. And you don't just always get to have the past life soulmate energy without the fear, without the lessons, without learning how to detach and become a unified person within yourself first. They go together. One comes with the other. So I think that's why it's titled The Path of Freedom, because it's freedom from our fears. It's freedom from the addictions. It's freedom from the obsession of that person, because you discover that you have those areas to grow in, and you are imbibed with, you are challenged with becoming those equal and balanced parts of yourself.
We have a question from Peggy. So, is it possible for a kindred spirit to be a twin flame? And so I'm going to say yes. So, I think Dawn is the one who can actually answer this the best, because she says that she doesn't have, the physical person right now. And so I would like you to take on this one.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. And I think that is almost the purest form of it, is that connection with, honestly, Peggy, I think you've got a lot of kindred spirits, knowing Peggy. And I think for me, I was so surprised at just how fulfilling that emotional, how do you call it, that connection that is so strong, that it wasn't even about where have you been or anything like that. It's like, you're here. And that's what I kept getting, was just like this overwhelming joy. And it wasn't like, well, where have you been, or what's been going, it wasn't like tons of questions. It was just like happiness. And there was no, like I said, the only physical, we didn't even hug. We just were like holding hands like that. And it was so amazing and connected. And I think the best, highest form, because the 3D has all of its physicality. Well, I don't think we get that same level of physicality, but we're really not missing anything when we're on a higher plane. I don't think we feel like we're missing anything. So yes, I absolutely think that a kindred spirit can be a twin flame. And don't forget, you have also an oversoul. So kindred spirits, I feel like there's a lot of them that are possible. And if you have the same oversoul, you are.
I think this touches back into what Sari had already said, and what I've been feeling too, is about not having just the one twin flame too. And just like last year, just this past year, I've had at least 4 different people say that they thought that we were twin flames. So that tells me that I'm emitting an energy of twin flame energy, and that I am being a mirror to a lot of people, around me. And so maybe that's something that you're experiencing too. Maybe you don't have just the one person, but you are a mirror, to literally just whoever you're coming into contact with. And so I would like to hear from Sari too, if she has some extra that she wanted to add to this.
Well, I think you both have said it, is that I think if we are coming from the same oversoul, Dawn, to your point, we're soul fractals. And so we have fractaled out and had many incarnations and experiences. And I think we've made soul contracts, with different, quote, twins, if you will, and where one might not honor a contract, another one might, come right in. But also, I think it depends on, have we done our work, and are we ready for that vibration? Because if we have not dealt with the things within the shadow side, to what everyone's been saying, oftentimes we're not ready because we had to do our work to be prepared. Because oftentimes we always put it back on them and say, well, what did you not do? Or why did you not honor the contract? But oftentimes it's about, do we need to level up in the work that we're doing to balance the divine masculine and feminine energies within each of us, and to raise that vibration? Because the reality is, the more each of us raise our vibration as light workers, the goodness is coming to the planet. And as you stated very succinctly, we need all the help we can get right now. And so there's kind of a clarion call for light workers to shine forth. And no matter whether you're in a current relationship or in separation with one twin, there might be someone as a part of your oversoul, another experience that may come in, but it will be in divine timing and when you are ready with that other individual, because that soul contract could be very different. Yeah.
Angie, do you have anything you want to add? No. Okay. All right. So we don't have any more questions. So I think that we are good to close this out now. I do appreciate everybody that showed up to be the ladies here and everybody in the chat. So thank you all for joining us today for this special Twin Flame Tuesday discussion. We've covered a lot of ground, from personal experiences and lessons learned to tips for staying balanced and grounded on the journey. I hope that this conversation has offered some clarity, comfort, and maybe even a few aha moments for you. Remember that the twin flame journey is deeply personal and unique to each of us. Wherever you are on your path, trust that you're exactly where you are meant to be, and that every experience is guiding you towards greater self-awareness and alignment with your highest purpose. If you enjoyed this session today, be sure to subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more insightful conversation and guidance. We offer daily videos, 2 live streams on Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern and Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern. Did I say that right? It's 6 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, 6 p.m. Eastern. And then we have our monthly educational episode where you get the chance to enter for a free private reading with one of the team. So thank you again for sharing this time with us, and we look forward to connecting with you the next time. All right, so we'll see you guys later. Bye.